Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 40 of Cognitive. 40 episodes, can you believe it? And also, a warm thanks to our Gigi Knitmore, who really suggested the title for this episode. But also, many warm thanks as well to our own Christine H. for a very generous coffee. I'd also like to point out, I'm just saying, I seem to have been directly connected to the sale of 2 fit desks. And I still love mine like crazy. Anyway, thank you very much, Christine. And it was very generous, and I really appreciate the love. I really do. It's kind of, I don't know. It's been an unloved kind of week, so I really appreciated that. Actually, though, it's been a very interesting week, as you will see. So meanwhile, you're all saying, oh gosh, Gemma, why? Why did you call this episode Climbing the Walls? No, you're not saying that. You're saying, Gemma, how about what's on your hooks and needles, eh? It's been an interesting week in that sense. I can't say there's been huge progress, but I'm just plugging along. I have some large projects going here. They're really pretty socks. I'm on sock number 2 still. I did pass the waist yarn for the afterthought heel, so I'm working through the 5 3/4 inches. That will be the foot before I do toe decreases. I really hate the fact 5 1/2 inches is too short, 5 1/4 inches is too long. Go figure. I'm working on it though, and I'm happy about that. The wild lettuce shawl, no progress. I am telling myself as soon as I get through the socks, I'll be turning my attention to the shawl. I think that might happen even sooner. Twin faces vest, still sailing through the United States postal system. The temperature blanket, it's caught up. And while I complain that we are trapped in orange, if you look at the picture in the show notes, you can see that I actually have a line of caution, which is a yellow-orange. And it's nice. Today as well, that was yesterday's line, will be caution. So a nice little break from the endless orange, because I've probably got like another 10 days of orange coming up. It beats going into rouge, which is the red-pink that is 101 or above. So if we never get off orange, I'll be grateful. I am still surprised after 7 months completed how satisfying this project is. I really figured I would hate it by about February. But it's coming out very vibrant and very enjoyable and very random. And so I do get a big kick out of it. Dizzy Blondes. Oh heavens, how boring Dizzy Blondes is. I'm now working on the 3rd bobbin of the endless, incredibly well-made, drafted, pin-drafted merino from Morro Bay Fleece Works. You should hear this as praise of this wonderful merino from Morro Bay, because it's just endless. I'm into 3 huge bobbins of it, and I think I may be halfway through it. This stuff is great, and I am really seriously talking potential sweater here, even if only a crop or a vest. A strategy. Well, we've been plodding along through a cross between distress tolerance and mindfulness. And it's interesting, I'm looking at Lane Pedersen's cards on DBT, and he says mindfulness is choosing to be aware of this moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. When we are being mindful, we gather our attention and then choose to focus or concentrate it on what we want to observe or do. I would actually compress that. I think mindfulness is not only being in the moment, but it's making the best you can make of this moment. And I think that's an important thing for me because you can't always make a moment good. Let's face it, when you're getting a root canal, you're not having a good moment. Except you are. You're doing the best thing you can do for your teeth and your health in that moment, even if it's painful. And I think that's an important consideration. That mindfulness is not, I'm going to be in this moment and every moment will therefore be great. Mindfulness is, I'm present in this moment, doing the best I can with the cards I've been dealt. It's important because, trust me, on your deathbed, and I've been by a few deathbeds at this point, you're not going to be lying there looking back going, oh, I sure am glad I missed most of my life because I wasn't paying attention. Okay, you really want to be in this moment, partly because we don't have the guarantee of future moments, and partly because even if you do have the guarantee of future moments, you don't want to be worrying. It's one thing to plan, it's another thing to waste your energy blowing this moment because you're worried about a future moment. So mindfulness is really about being present right here, right now, which means you're being present in the moment, even in the smallest of moments. So sweeping the floor is a mindfulness exercise in Buddhism. You need to keep yourself focused on what you're doing. Now, of course, the way a lot of us here in the West get through boredom is by focusing on something else while we're doing a boring task. And you could argue, in our logic, that's a way to make the moment meaningful, except the question is, are you really enjoying this moment? I have mixed feelings about this. I'm one to fantasize when I'm bored. I am really enjoying those moments. That may be the best thing I can do while I'm vacuuming the living room. But remember, whatever your decision on this, I think a Buddhist would tell you, no, you should focus all your attention on vacuuming. And I think I'm a little more liberal than that. But the important thing is, are you doing the best thing that you can be doing in this moment? And the reason that's important is, what are you going to do about distraction? That's really what we're saying. It's one thing to say, I'm vacuuming and I choose to think about last night's episode of Star Trek Discovery, just saying. Not like I'm recommending or anything. I mean, if that's what you think the best thing is you can do with your moment, I'm kind of okay with that, as long as you don't forget to have a life. It's one thing to do fantasy from time to time. It's another to never stop. But what is important is that there will be what the Buddhists call the little demons, the little distractions. So you're vacuuming and you realize there's this big clump of dog hair. Not like this ever happens in my home with a rough collie and a German shepherd. And you can't get it to go up the tube of your vacuum, and you're getting all mad, you're getting all frustrated. And of course you're doing what we all do, right? You're running it over and over and over and over and over and over. Now, of course, you have demonstrated about 12 times that it isn't going to be sucked up into your vacuum, but even if it was going to be sucked up in your vacuum, it would be screwing up the beater in your vacuum, and you'd have to turn the vacuum off and pick it off. I'm just saying, well, this is the kind of thing that makes you crazy. This is distraction. And when you deal with distraction, one way to cope is to treat it as a part of your mindfulness practice. So here I am vacuuming, and I'm off in, I forget what century they're in Star Trek Discovery, and I'm out there with Michael Burnham, and I'm experiencing all the wonder, and then suddenly I hear from my vacuum cleaner. Well, we can call that a distraction. And a distraction actually is a reminder to get your attention focused back on your activity. And so dealing with distractions is not annoying in terms of mindfulness. It's a part of the practice. It's a gentle push back into the practice. So when you're drifting or you're getting distracted, the job is to bring yourself back into your present moment. And so if you're vacuuming, that's your present moment. You stop, you fix the vacuum, and you go forward. It's important to realize in any task you do, the problems, the distractions are part of the task. In other words, if you are vacuuming and there's a big hairball that won't go up your vacuum, it is part of the process of vacuuming to clean the hairball. The hairball is not a distraction from your vacuuming, it is part of your vacuuming. And I think this goes with the Buddhist logic of, if you break a vase, why do you mourn? It was always the fate of the vase to be broken. In other words, brokenness is a part of the natural life cycle of that vase that accidentally became broken. That takes a lot to get your brain around, because that takes you in a lot of directions. For example, I'm going to go to an old example, which is the actor Christopher Reeve, who played Superman. And I think we all heard when he fell off his horse doing a jump, and he broke his spine, I believe, and he was in a wheelchair. And of course we say that is very tragic, but in the Buddhist sense, it is not tragic. It is a normal part of who Christopher Reeve was destined to be. He was destined to be this highly successful, handsome as heck actor, but he was also destined to be a man who had to work out the challenges of his post-accident life. This does not change the fact that this was a tragic accident. Being in a wheelchair, I think it goes without saying, was probably much harder on the man than being alive and well and healthy and famous and all that. Still had the good looks, I gotta say. At any rate, we're not talking about good or bad. We're not talking about happy or sad. We're not talking about a moral or an emotional value. We're simply talking about radical acceptance. This is the way it was for Christopher Reeve. So you can spend a lot of time saying, this is terrible, or you can look at the quite enormous success he had with his career after the accident, including directing and acting in a version of Rear Window, the classic, originally Hitchcock flick. And you can talk about who did he become, how did he change as a man when he had to cope with this enormous challenge. So try to remember that that is the ultimate. That's a very extreme example, but you have to remember that this is all part of the way it is. This is radical acceptance. And one of the ways you see people struggling is when something goes terribly wrong in their lives and they say, now everything has changed and now my life is no longer good. And it's not mine to judge if they're right or wrong. But again, you're in that question of radical acceptance of this is how it is. And if you spend too much time on the unfairness of it, you become blocked in dealing with the challenges that are now arising because of the change in situation. So without wanting to blame or accuse anybody of weakness or foolishness, because I don't want to be accused myself in those situations, let me tell you, they happen to everybody, including me. The goal here is radical acceptance, is to say it was always the fate of the vase to be broken. We do not get angry or frustrated. We move forward and cope with, now we have a broken vase. And in this moment, I have to talk about I believe it's Japanese idea of wabi-sabi, which is when something breaks, you mend it so that the mending is visible, not invisible. That, in other words, you accept the brokenness of the object and you mend it so that you can see the mending you have done. I just heard Jasmine Knitmore prick up her ears because I know where this is going to take you girls, because you're talking about visible mending and decorative mending. And I think that's right. I think that's a real salute to wabi-sabi. That wabi-sabi is this, I hope I'm saying that right, the concept here is that you can't give up art or beauty or the energy of your life with anger or regret over change. And it's an extremely, extremely difficult thing to learn. Those of you who have done English literature will remember in the Renaissance the mutability cantos. I think it's Edmund Spenser who wrote them. And they're about how change is so painful to accept. It is. And where we're trying to go with this is right out of Buddhism, but it's very fundamental to DBT as well, that we must live with change, and distraction is a milder version, a less drastic version of change. And mindfulness is about accepting that, and we practice it moment by moment. And how hard is that? Well, I'm certainly making it sound easy, right? Remember, Buddhist monks are doing mindfulness professionally, and it takes them years. Put a lid on it. You may remember a while back, I made homemade boba pellets, and I did put the recipe in the show notes, and I can't remember which episode it was. But anyway, I was bored one evening, probably Friday evening, I would think, because it's one of my patients who made the suggestion to make my own keto boba pellets, because I was talking about missing boba. Keto boba pellets, all I can say about it is, if you go to a tea shop and you get boba, which are big round balls of jellied tapioca starch, you eat those things. I don't know why people love them. However, I did. They have no flavor. They're not sweet or anything. They're just starch, gratuitous starch. So you think, well, can't get much worse. Yeah, try using beef hoof. The reality is, I'm using grass-fed beef powdered gelatin to make mine. I know all the vegetarians in the audience just puked. I'm sorry. I'm keto. I have to be this way or die. And I'm not that noble to die for those standards, even though I did used to be vegan. So please, if you're a vegetarian, put your fingers in your ears for the next few minutes. At any rate, I decided to make boba pellets again because there is just something weirdly attractive about throwing little gelatinous pellets into your tea when your tea is ice cold and the pellets are ice cold, and then chewing on those suckers. I can't explain it, but these guys are so little they do go up a straw. So my patient had suggested a mold. I went on to Amazon and I looked for a teeny tiny mold because I wanted it to be able to go up my straw. So you can see the mold, and you can see me using a syringe that we just had lying around from medication years ago. You bet I rinsed it carefully. However, I must say I haven't had a headache in weeks. No, I'm joking. Okay, so I made the boba pellets. This is a really simple thing to do, and it's simply 2 tablespoons of the powdered gelatin, and you're going to dissolve that in warm water in very, very strong tea or coffee. And you just stir and keep going till it comes to a boil. As it comes to a boil, it will thicken just a little bit, which is what you want. Then you let it cool for about 5 minutes, and I used a ladle the first time, I think, or a spoon. In this, because the mold is so small, the little holes in the mold are so small, I'm using a leftover syringe. But anyway, I syringed them into the mold, and the mold, because it's flexible, had to be backed with something firm, so I put it on a baking sheet, which worked perfectly. Into the freezer it goes for 15 minutes. So this is really fast and really, really easy. I think the longest part of it is making the strong tea, because you boil the water and then you let the tea bag steep for a good 5 minutes. And then I popped them all out of the mold, and you can see I have a picture of my thumbnail next to one of them, so you can see the relative size. And there they all are, gathered on the cookie sheet. And there's me syringing them in, and they are all gathered in a bowl. So that's my keto boba pellets. And again, if you're cutting back on starch and you're a keto fan, which is one of those crazy summer drinks here in Southern California, this is how you do it. Shoot. The Fit Desk mileage, which should be there, is not. I'm a little mystified why it's not. But the Fit Desk mileage was, I think I did 15 miles this week, and I'll see if I can find the picture and put it in the show notes. I had a really good Fit Desk week. I think I used it Tuesday morning for like 4 miles, and I didn't take a picture. And then I went at it again both Thursday and Friday. And one patient on Friday said, "You must be really upset. You're moving back and forth, side to side." And I thought, whoops. So I learned that you can brace your hands on the handlebars and it stops that side to side motion. Still in love with the Fit Desk. Amazing how much stronger I feel, as I'm about to tell you. Meanwhile, I have been toying with the idea of an electronic bike, an e-bike, battery driven only. And I was kind of boosted in this week because for some reason I got the wind up and started looking at trail motorcycles. And what you need to know is I grew up on the back of a Honda CT90. These things were designed to go into the woods with hunters in the 70s. That's what they were supposed to do. They were incredibly well balanced, spare gas tank on the back, so you could just flip a switch and go into your reserve fuel. Carried a lot of weight, really reliable, 8 gears, 4 normal gears, then you could throw a switch and go into 4 lowest gears. In the lowest of the low set, I could go probably up a 90-degree incline. I mean, that thing was wonderful. If you go online, you can find the CT90 still on sale. Honda discontinued it, I think about 1980, and they're still out there, and there are a lot of collectors. They go for about $4,000 each. So I was wandering around online for some reason looking at trail bikes, and now I don't like the current trail bikes. They all look like what we used to call motocross, dirt racing bikes. I don't like the position the rider is in. I don't like the layout of the bike. They keep assuming that you want to go on a trail, but you also want to race in some way. No, I want that beautiful stability of the old Honda CT90. Well, believe it or not, I'll get it if I want it. It's out there. Honda has reissued it, and they are perfectly clear that they are recreating the 90, but it is a 110, which means it's big enough to go on the road legally if you get licensed. So it's kind of the one thing the CT90 lacked. You can drive it down the highway to get to your trail, to go into the woods. Would I want to? No. I would have no desire, in California at least, to take a 110cc bike onto a freeway. I think that's begging for death. However, on a smaller back road, maybe. At any rate, I told my husband, and he said, "You should get it for your birthday." And I said, "What?" And I was tempted. I was really tempted. But I also remember problems with spark plugs. And what do you do when it breaks down and it weighs 200 pounds plus? And so I went back to something I've been researching before, which is e-bikes. And I fell in love. I went to the site of Aventon, Aventon, and I went looking at their e-bikes. So currently we consider ourselves to be e-bike hunting. In the meantime, I went to my doctor, as I mentioned, and Dr. Stupid has been replaced by Dr. Pretty Good Beauty Pageant Queen. And she was totally blowing off the fact I gained weight. And I couldn't figure out how. I was 163, well now I'm 180. And I thought, wow. And she just said, "Oh, quarantine, everybody's doing that, don't worry about it." Well, they never are good with diabetes, are they? I mean, she was so thrilled that my A1C was good. She was like, who cares about your weight? I do. I do, because the reason I don't work within the guidelines of the American Diabetes Association is they've got their theory wrong in many respects, in my humble opinion. And I'm following medical doctors on this one. It's not just in my head. There's considerable disagreement about how one becomes diabetic. I mean, we all agree it's metabolic, but at the same time, it's why is it happening to some people, why not others? And I do believe it's related to carbohydrate addiction. And I believe I'm genetically set up for that, as all addictions are. Okay, having said that piece, I won't lecture you. But the important thing is, in the medical theory I follow, you can't gain weight without storing fat. You can't store fat without insulin, high insulin. So the question is, why am I getting high insulin? Which means also my A1C this time around was probably high, although I haven't checked it. Why, though? Why? And so I looked at my diet carefully and said, because I don't cheat by eating pasta or anything wildly carbolicious. But I thought over the quarantine, I did let myself have more carbs per day. that I probably stayed within a keto diet, but I didn't stay within the version of keto that as a diabetic I want to use. So I said, all right, and I took a good hard look at it, and strangely, I made 2 changes. One was I stopped drinking Diet Coke or anything else with Splenda or the chemical name aspartame or aspartame. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's a phony word anyway. But I knocked that all out. And I also cut back on my heavy whipping cream. That's something Ken Berry, MD, talks about when he says you're not losing enough weight on a keto diet. And what happened? 4 pounds in 3 days peeled right off me. So that seems like a pretty clear yes. So I have reverted to iced tea instead of Diet Coke, which I'm enjoying, and hence the boba. And is 4 pounds in, actually I've written here 4 pounds in 4 days. I don't remember if it was 4 days or 3 days. Is that too much? Too fast? Not by anything I can tell. I feel great. I think the only noticeable change is I'm really sleeping at night, which I'm really, really enjoying. And then there's rock climbing. Yes, I decided to teach myself to rock climb. Rock climbing. Now, when I say rock climbing, I don't mean I want to go out into the wilderness and climb El Capitan like thousands of tourists before me. I am a total coward. I do not want to climb rock walls in the wilderness. We take our son to a climbing gym down in Santa Clarita called Top Out. And they have all sorts of levels of climbing. They have walls with handholds that you just climb of different levels of difficulty. They have walls where you get to the top and clamber onto a safety balcony and then can walk downstairs at the back, which I've seen my son do countless times and I'll never do it. Then they have my favorite, the ultimate safety scared woman belaying wall. They call it the auto belay wall, where it's where you learn and you put on a harness that goes around your waist and around your thighs and connects to the waist. And then there's a loop at the front and that connects to a big carabiner that is attached to an automatic belaying engine. What does that mean? It means you climb up all the nicely, conveniently placed handholds and footholds. When you get to the top, you push yourself off the wall and you sit in midair, and the harness will lower you in a sitting position. Now, if you look in all the pictures this week, you will see pictures of my son making it look easy, as he has a tendency to do. Nothing scares him, and he is very physically confident. So watching him do this, I thought it looked fun, particularly the belaying part. And I said to the hubs, I want to try that. And I'll give the hubs credit. He turned a few shades paler than usual and said cautiously, I think there should be a rule that people our age, when they do this sort of thing, they must only do it in a harness with safety equipment. At which point I laughed and said, honey, I just want to try climbing up and belaying down. I have no desire to climb raw walls in the wilderness or even to go up with a rig and belay my way down from the top. Rappelling, we used to call it in my youth. I have no desire to do that. I've given up several opportunities to do it in outward bound type of camps. Not going to do it. I just wanted to see what it's like to climb the wall. It is very hard in pictures to give you a clear sense of what those walls are like. But anyway, I put it in the back of my head that this would be a great way to celebrate my 61st birthday. A few caveats. I wanted to run a 10K on my 60th. I was in no way prepared and, pandemic, quarantine. So I didn't do anything about that. And this year I feel like getting my strength back. So I thought it'd be cool my 61st birthday to just go rock climbing. So we'll get back to that in the blather, but you can see the pictures of Dr. Gemma making up her mind that she is going to do this. Okay, so moving along into the fluffy books. Well, I'm on the second to last book in the Constable Evans series by Rhys Bowen, and there's a link in the show notes. And I don't think I've said it yet, so I'll say it now. The show notes are at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, and also on our group on Ravelry. And you can certainly leave me comments in either place, and I will appreciate them. At any rate, there is a link in the show notes to the second to the last book, which is Evan Blessed. Okay, these were cozy mysteries. Cozy mysteries, you never feel too unsafe or too endangered. And the reason I don't read 20th or 21st century mysteries, or at least mysteries in those settings, is they're usually very violent and disturbing to me. Victorian mysteries certainly can be, but for some reason, setting them in the past makes me feel better. At any rate, I have to tell you, Constable Evans not so cozy anymore. Not terrible, but the topics are getting grim, and Evan Blessed is certainly grim. And I'm not going to go into it, but it's a little bit more grim, and it's making me glad. There's only one book in the series, and I'm a little wary because the description of it on Amazon was the spectacular climax, and I thought, oh, if they're killing somebody I love, I'm right out of here. But anyway, I'm reading Evan Blessed. I just got a copy of Mystical Stitches, and I'll talk about that next time, which is an artist, and I suspect which, writing about embroidery. But her work is phenomenally original and freestyle and beautiful and fearless. And since I am kind of a freestyle embroiderer myself, I don't use a machine, I love the book so far. I mean, looking at the cover and the illustrations. But she actually is writing intelligent text about content and about style. And so I really would like to sit down and read this. So I'll start reviewing it probably in the next episode. Something I really like. Well, I bought myself a Kodak Step mini printer, link in the show notes. Why, you ask? Well, I don't print a lot of pictures, but I have returned to journaling recently, as I think I've mentioned, and I would like to have pictures in my journal. I have always been one to travel with a glue stick or stapler and my journal, and I have stapled or glued in lots of things like train tickets and programs and museum guides and whatnot. And so I was missing that. Now, meanwhile, printers have gone in an interesting direction. That if you print full-size images and you use a computer printer, you have to buy tons of extra colored inks. It raises the cost, that sort of thing. So we, a long time ago, decided to go to just plain black and white laser printing, and we've been very happy with that. I don't particularly need color prints, but I'd like them. Well, the newer technology seems to be aimed at 20-somethings and teenagers. And what it is, a printer that is basically the length and width of your cell phone and maybe about an inch thick. And it uses a paper that is very similar to the old Polaroid types of papers back in my youth that developed themselves. So in other words, a Polaroid camera, you didn't put film in it, you put Polaroid picture paper, and it would spit out the picture, and then you would watch it develop on the paper. So all the development went on this paper, and you never had to send it to a lab to be developed. Well, Kodak has gone that way, as have many others, including Polaroid and Fuji. And I did some homework and decided on the Polaroid Step, which I think I got for $60. And you can get 50 sheets of the printer paper, 2 inches by 3 inches. And of course, this is really a teenager kind of thing. It's like little snapshots. Now, having been raised in the 60s, when I was in the 60s, instead of 2x3s, we had 4x6s. And those were cool snapshots that teenagers exchanged. I think Kodak has remembered something good. This is something kids like to do. It's like giving each other business cards with pictures on them. I'm really wondering about how this can be adapted. They have their own app. I just got the camera today. The paper, which is really tiny, came yesterday, as did a carrier box, a hard shell carrier box, although I don't think you need one. It looks like it's in a hard shell plastic, but it never hurts. At any rate, this is very exciting to me, and I will let you know how it goes, but I wanted to be able to take pictures and stick them in my journal. And what is my journal size? It's bigger. It might be I think my journal is a 5x7 page. So this seems really good. And of course, I've been playing around with the imagery on the cat tarot, just as sort of looking at pictures and using it to think about each day, like a meditation before I start. Like I said, I'm not into telling the future or anything like that. I'm not psychic or anything like that. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. But it is fun to just read the message on the card or look at the images on the card and think about, how would I apply that to my day? It's like a creative thinking exercise. If you heard a meow, that was Minerva, who's figured out I'm in my study and my door is closed. At any rate, so the thing I really like right now is this Kodak Step Mini printer. It's almost the same size as my old cell phone was in its Mophie recharging case, my old iPhone, whatever that was, 6S. It's not very big at all. And so it'll hang off a backpack or a purse or fit in a purse or any kind of tote bag really nicely. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm very excited because I feel like I'm doing exciting and interesting things, including the journaling, and I want to be able to put pictures in my journal. I think it makes the journaling experience much richer. In the meantime, there's some hidden things about these. And one of the most hidden is the paper, that a lot of these cameras say special sticky back paper. Well, the Kodak paper doesn't advertise it, but it is. Pretty much it seems to be par for the course here when you have this kind of cell phone mini camera, that the paper is self-developing and sticky backed. So you want to think about that if you're thinking about doing this. The whole setup, the case, 50 sheets of the paper, the camera itself, cost about $100. The camera, I think, was $60. The paper goes, I believe, for about 50 cents a sheet. You buy it in packages of 50. So I think it's a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to be playing with it. Probably I'll start tonight. I'm very excited to have the chance. Very easy, seems very user-friendly. I'm downloading the app now from Kodak, and you can connect the camera to the app, and I think that means you can even do special effects and digital stickers on the photos, and they sell actual stickers you can put on your photos. This is why I think it's being marketed to very young people, which I think is a lot of fun. So something I really like right now, it's the Kodak Step Mini Printer, and I'll let you know how it works out. Okay, on to the blather. We still have the Black Brim game and have not played it. I'm kind of bummed. I'd really like to try it. In the meantime, I think I mentioned that I've been trying out e-bikes, and I put the link under the blather for Aventon. The models I like, I wanted big tires to go outdoors on the trails, because we have Edison roads. We used to call them fire trails when I was a kid, all over the place here. I could practically ride out to the ocean without crossing asphalt on the trails here, and I'm willing to try it. So I'm looking forward to that. So again, I'm going to start trying out more of the Aventon line, or Aventon. The types I like, there's two with big knobby, wide fat tires meant to go outside. One is the Adventure, that is adventure without the D. Obvious pun on the maker's name, which I have tried and feels like a bicycle morphed with a dirt motorcycle, a motocross or dirt bike motorcycle. And like I said, it's kind of a weird ride. You feel like you're being pushed from the back all the time when you pedal. But I was getting used to it in the brief trial they gave me. They were really cool about it. The dealership was really, really great. And you have to look online to find the dealers. This one is in Santa Clarita, very accessible. And I walked up, and the two models I wanted to try were sitting right in front. Now, the Adventure comes in a small, medium, and large, and I realized now I was trying out the small. And I'm probably going to be a lot more comfortable on the medium. The distance from the seat to my leg and from the seat to the ground did not sync well. When I was able to stand on my toes on the seat and touch the ground, my length of leg was still a little short pedaling. So I'm suspecting the medium size would fix that. In the meantime, there's one called the Cinch, S as in Sam, Y, N as in Nancy, C as in cat, H as in helicopter. The Cinch is folding. So I could fold the Cinch and put it in the back of the Prius of Love and take it anywhere. And that would take out the need for a trailer. And they do recommend the cinch be used in the great outdoors. Why the Adventure then? I think the bigger tires might give you a little better traction. And they seem to think the Adventure could go on sand. I haven't the faintest desire to take an e-bike on sand on a beach. I don't know if it's even legal in California. So while I enjoyed riding the Adventure, I suspect the cinch is what I'm going for. At 73 pounds, I could just about lift the Adventure. At 68, I actually could quite handily lift the cinch. So we'll see how that goes. What I'm going to do is rent their street model, the Pace, and I'm going to rent it for a few days, I think, like one day every weekend, and just get used to riding on them and get used to handling it. And I also want to find some hills on the lovely paved trails all over the Santa Clarita Valley. I'm just going to try that, just to get used to the sense of driving it before I decide to take a trail bike out. And so we get back to climbing the wall. Gemma climbs the walls. And what happened? Well, when I went, let's be honest, I have acrophobia. I am afraid of heights. I never used to be. As I have aged, I've started getting dizzy when I look over edges. So I thought this was probably pretty uncurable. And that's one reason I wanted to do the wall, because the wall looks like it's an excellent core exercise, and trust me, it is. And it also is good for upper body strength. Women, as they age, lose upper body strength, and I rather resent that. I resent being unable to lift things. Although apparently you'd never know it by my ability to swing around e-bikes. At any rate, I thought, why not? Why not try it? Because again, now that I'm turning 61, my strength isn't going to get better unless I work at it. You know, I mean, there's just things you have to look at and say, if I'm going to do this, I should probably do it now. Shingles vaccine, anyone? At any rate, so I decided I would do it. And I decided to think about it like a behavioral clinician. So I thought, here's the deal. Belaying down the wall, being in harness, and being able to go down the wall consciously is going to be the big challenge for me. It sure was. And then I thought, the height's going to be a challenge. So I walked in, and I got a very nice guy, Howard, and he began to train me. I looked up the wall and had a panic attack. That was unexpected. I mean, it's just a straight wall with handholds, you know, big lumps of formed hard plastic with handhold and footholds sticking out of it. I can't explain it. I looked up the wall and had a total panic attack. I had never had this happen. I've watched my son go up and down perfectly calmly. I knew it might happen, but it caught me off guard. At any rate, amazingly, Howard said, a lot of people have your reaction. And he said, you can do this at any speed you want. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. I'm just going to help you get started. And you don't have to do any more than you're ready to do. And I thought, great, I'm going to be ready just to stand in the harness and stare at the wall today. But at one point, when he realized I was panicking, he said, just sit down, drink cold water, take a breather, don't worry about it. And I finally realized he was part of the problem. I didn't want to try it in front of him because I just didn't feel like it would go well. The other part of the problem was he said, stand on the ground and I'll show you how the belaying rig will catch you. So he has me push myself backwards. I'm standing with my feet spread on the floor, shoulder width apart. And he says, okay, push backwards, let yourself fall to the floor. Well, the harness just let me drop onto my butt. And I felt a little bit of catch, but the sense I got was this is going to go way faster than I'm ready to go. Now, it didn't occur to me that you can just stop the descent by putting your feet against the wall. The rope isn't going to keep playing out. It's a machine. If you stop moving, the rope stops feeding. At any rate, so I was really shaken up by that. His exercise to make me confident failed utterly, went the other direction. But I realized that was going to happen anyway. And so finally, Howard kind of got the hint and decided to leave me alone. And I realized he was watching me because I switched walls. He put me on the second easiest wall because it would be a better belaying wall. You won't hit it as much because of its shape. And I said, I want to go for the easier climbing path because I need to climb up and fall and let the belaying rig catch me. So I went over to the easier wall, which is more straight and had more handholds. And I just went up it, and I really was going up 2 or 3 handholds and then just pushing myself off because the goal was learn the basics, learn the safety stuff, get comfortable with belaying, and see if you can get about 10 feet that is the top of my head, not the bottom of my feet, off the ground. And that's not very much, let me tell you. I suspect I might have made 10 feet by the end. I wasn't paying that much attention. But I just kept climbing up and belaying off. And I slammed myself into the wall. I mean, you really can't just let go. What you're supposed to do, you push off with both hands, and you then put both hands on the rope. A lot of people only put one hand on the rope. He said, no, you want to use both. But I saw a lot of people putting one hand, including my son later when I looked at pictures of him. But I see why he wants you to use both hands, because it positions you so that you swing back towards the wall and your feet are facing the wall, and you use your feet to walk backwards down the wall or to just guide you as you slide down the wall. Not so much. I kept swinging into the wall and bouncing off it, but I was only falling like 3 feet before my feet could hit the ground. And the first few times I just landed on my butt. And they do have a class to teach you how to land better, but that class also involves climbing on the walls that don't have belaying rigs, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just planning to go up this wall, which is, I don't know, between 20 and 30 feet high. I just want to learn to scramble up it because I just think it's good for my strength. But I've also made up my mind that there is no failure. That the idea is, as much as I want to, I go up and be laid down. And if I go up 10 feet 20 times in a session and then say, I've had enough, I've had enough. I don't ever have to make the top, was my decision. What I'm really doing is exposure therapy, that I'm desensitizing myself to being on the wall. And even by the end of the day, originally it was go up like 2 footholds. I don't even think, what would that, my head was probably about 7 feet off the ground, and then let yourself fall. And I thought, that's got to be enough. Where did I get this from? I got it from scuba. You may remember, if you used to listen to the podcast, about the time I did scuba. And scuba was a kind of glorious fail. Interesting data on that one now. May not have been a fail, may have been intentional on the part of one of my teachers, but I'm not going to go there. The guy pushed me off a ledge when I wasn't ready, and my eardrum blew out. And now another friend said, it's very macho out here, and they don't want women. And my friend said, has it ever occurred to you he did that on purpose? That he just said, you're too old and you're too female? I don't know. Either way, scuba was a glorious fail. I loved scuba, but I didn't love the open ocean. I really didn't. Would I do scuba again? Yes, because my eardrum was damaged and my right sinuses were damaged by that jerk pushing me off a ledge in a pool. If I did scuba again, I would only do it in the tropics in a PADI diving course where we did beach diving. That walking in with clear sunlit water sounds great to me. Being dropped into black cold water off the coast of California, even at the best of times, not really what I wanted. We were dropped in at a level where I could have really hurt myself because my buoyancy control was never good. I really didn't get buoyancy very well. However, having said all that, scuba was a wonderful success for me. Scuba did incredible things for me. I was giving up on my life at 50 like I'm now trying to give up on it at 60. Scuba reminded me that I'm still alive, that I have many years to go probably, that I'm very fit, and that I am supposed to keep exploring life and enjoying life. So, I did great in scuba till we got to the open ocean. My PADI teacher warned me the boat was going to be very macho, and he really didn't want me to go on it, but I wanted to get it over with. I needed an ending to scuba, and that's where I realized I didn't want to do scuba forever. I just wanted to feel like I had done all the tricks to get certified, and I did, and I feel really good about that. And that's kind of how I feel about the rock wall, is I feel like I'm willing to try new things. I don't want my life to turn into just being very stationary. I've always been an athlete. I'm always going to go out and try things. And so I climbed the wall. How far did I climb it? Not very. Did I get a third of the way up it? I hope so. I don't have any good pictures because I was too, can you believe this, intimidated to ask other people to take a picture of me with my phone. But I'm looking forward to going back, and I'm going to have to reconquer the fears when I go back. But this time I feel more confident and knowledgeable. I know how to set up my rig. I have a month membership to try this on. I can take their newbie class, which is actually more advanced than I want to be. It covers all the types of rock climbing instead of just the automatic belaying wall. All I want is the automatic belaying wall. I just want a good climbing workout that's safe and manageable for me. I don't need to climb in the wilderness. In the meantime, you can see my beautiful Salmon Amour, it was called, because if you're going to do this behaviorally, there has to be a reward at the end. So my reward was incredibly good sashimi. So I went to my favorite sashimi place and got a lot of it. Finally, you can see a picture of my son looking like a god. Particularly, it's a 3-part picture. The first one, he's climbing. That's what I did, but he's higher than I got. The top, he's at the very top touching the belaying engine, which is kind of how you prove you're macho when you made it. And then you can see him belaying with excellent form down the wall. If you want to see how I belayed down the wall, there's a really good Simpsons episode where Homer is in an ambulance stretcher and they're helicoptering him out of a big canyon and they screw it up and he keeps whapping into the wall. That's probably the best portrayal I think I could imagine of how I was belaying down. But we'll see if I can learn how to. But you know, sitting here today on Monday night, August 9th at 9:14 p.m. in 2021, I went rock climbing on a wall at 60 years old. I feel pretty darn good about that. I also feel like I'm melting into my chair. While I don't expect to be really sore, and I had to stop not because of any muscle problems, but because my big toes were getting sore from being jammed into the tight shoes, which you do need tight shoes to do this. But it started to hurt my big toes. They felt a little too squished. I wear a size 9 shoe. The guy put me into size 10s. I don't think 11 is a good idea. It is very intuitive when you get onto those footholds why you want tight shoes. But it did squish my big toes a bit. So yes, they're sore tonight. And that's going to be tough if I go tomorrow night. In the meantime, someone asked me, what is the Vinx like that I talked about last week when it's actually in your car? And I thought of that today and I took a picture of it. And you can see it. Now the picture is at an odd angle, as you can tell. There is the emergency brake on the left side of the driver's footwell in my Toyota Prius. And you can see the footrest, you can see the foot mat, and you can see my feet in my running shoes. And when you're at the wheel, you actually, if you look down, you can't see it at all. But I put the camera way down low, like at the bottom edge of the front seat, the driver's seat, so you can see it. So you have to imagine swinging yourself up and forward a bit, and you don't see anything. But that's what it looks like plugged in. It does not stick out, even though that picture makes it look like it does. I have never touched it or hit it with my foot or my knee or any part of my leg. So that's what the Vinx looks like in the Prius. And finally, Minerva gets the last word. Well, happy International Cat Day, first of all, you peasants, is what she would say if she could. But I had an interesting experience this week with a friend and her cat, that one of her cats ran away and the other cat was acting out. And it was really surprising. This reminded me so much of myself with Minerva, that she's telling me all these goals she has for the cat who's still with her. And the cat was clearly signaling confusion and distress while we talked. And she was saying, well, I want to pick her up, but now she bites me since the other cat is missing, blah, blah, blah. And so the funniest thing happened. I started interpreting her cat's movements to her and the cat's gestures. And so after a few minutes, the cat looked at her and began to narrow its eyes, which is how cats say they feel affection towards you. Wide eyes mean they're hunting or they're distressed. And so the cat looked at her and started slowly closing its eyes. And I said, do it back. I said, widen your eyes a little bit and then slowly close them. And the cat reacted like, whoa! And the cat just started head bonking her. And I said, that means she's really loving you. Head bonks are a huge act of trust. And so she said, what do I do? And I said, well, since she's head bonking against your knee, pat her head, but don't touch the rest of her body. Just touch her head because that's what cats do. They head bonk. They just touch their heads. But I said, if she does it further up your body, like around your shoulders and neck, lean over and gently bump her with your head. And I said, if she's sitting on a shelf or somewhere you can reach her, you don't want to make it a big dramatic movement, but just lean over and gently head bump her. And you're trying to tell her you want to speak to her. Because I said, cats are not domesticated animals. Dogs are. Cats really domesticated us. They got us to let them in, and they got us to feed them by training us, is the evidence. So the idea with cats is they're not doggy. Dogs want to speak human languages. Cats don't. Cats expect you to speak their language. So anyway, we had this hilarious session of cat linguistics. And at the end of it, the cat was like, I love you, I'm so relieved. I thought you were a moron, but now you're doing everything right. And it was one of these funny episodes. And I thought, boy, I owe a lot to Minerva. I certainly learned a lot from her. At the same time, I picked her up yesterday because she was outside. And I picked her up very gently and very carefully, took her indoors. She was fine. I shut the door, she was fine, but then I didn't put her down right away. I got bitten. And again, I separated myself from her all day. I just said, I need to get over that because I'm so disappointed and hurt. And she really bit me in just above the thumb on my hand, on the outside of my hand. And so I gave her room and she stayed away from me, and I realized she was concerned, that she knew she had done something wrong. And she bit me, like she nipped hard and stopped immediately, and I knew she realized this was a mistake. And I put her down gently, but I said, you and I need to be apart. So I avoided her for 24 hours, and she avoided me. And this morning she came up and meowed a lot at me and started trying to talk to me and very tentatively rubbed against me as I was sitting down. And I did not pet her. I just let her rub against me, and she turned up the affection. She started head bonking me when I was sitting at my desk, and so we are reconciled, but we do occasionally have a little accident. So there we are. And notice how I have avoided saying anything terribly political or anything about the resurgence of COVID. All I can tell you is I'm feeling very overwhelmed with that. Aren't we all, really? Because it was so unnecessary. Oh no, I'm going there, don't go there. Please remember that there are immunocompromised people getting very major drugs that ruin their immune system or suppress their immune system, people who are getting chemotherapy or radiation therapy for cancer. Those people cannot get vaccinated. And of course, children under 12 cannot get vaccinated. And now, of course, we're coming up to the healthcare workers reaching their 6-month mark, and we're not really sure if we need to be given booster shots or if we can wait a year. So all this stuff is in the air, although it does look like a year so far, which I'm hoping for, obviously. All this is hanging in the air. So please remember, it's not over. Please mask up and please observe social distancing. Please wash your hands. Really wash your hands. Please remember that it could be someone else's kid and you don't want to go through life doing that. So please, the whole point here, wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance. I feel like I'm forgetting one and I'm just too tired, but the whole point of this is, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.